Nancy. Hi, Barb.
Hi, Barb.
Good morning, everybody.
Now we can hear you.
Okay,
We're chatting.
I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, good for you. Where are you in North Carolina?
I'm in Durham, visiting my daughter. She works at Duke University Hospital right now.
Oh, nice.
Today, we're having a rainy morning.
You're at Duke, Barbara?
I'm in in Durham. Yes.
I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I used to live in Carborough.
Hey. I tried to get tickets the other evening for the Duke men's basketball game. They were playing Notre Dame, and I did get a call back, and they had a few available tickets. Seated tickets were $250 each.
Oh, my goodness.
They're very proud of themselves. We decided to watch from home.
I hope the students get in for free. Although at Duke, maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're
Student
fine.
section.
Right.
They get it.
I don't think they have a huge arena from the looks of it, but it certainly looked full, and Coach K was there that night, interestingly enough.
Wow. All right, I'm going to call us to order because it looks like we have a quorum, although we have a few people missing. So I'll call us to order and ask if there's any public comment. Seeing no public, I will assume no. So let's move to approval of the January 2023 minutes. Any comments or questions about the minutes? Hearing none, a motion to approve
I move.
and a second by Alan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion passes. Financial reports.
So I have asked Holting to hold off closing December till we get all the December expenses booked. And I think we're at that point now. So I will go ahead and ask them to produce December financials, and then they can do January. At the moment, what I would report is we have spent $431,000 on the demolition contract with Paragon, or through Paragon
For the Lafon.
for the Lafon, right? And at the end of, and I have booked a couple of everything through like early January back into December for that expense. So I expect at the end of December, our bank balance, our book bank balance will be about $1 million, which is
Okay.
significantly, as Alan Delwich had pointed out a few months ago, will be significantly above what we budgeted, which was $363,000.
Okay.
And that's my report.
That's good news. Mhm. Any questions for Ann? We do. We kind of need it. Any questions, comments? Okay, motion to accept the financial report, or we don't have
Well,
an
we really
official
don't
one,
have one.
so we'll wait till
Yeah,
next month. Old business, Marcy Morrison Bridge Art and Spirit of Manitou Springs. Becca is not
Becca
here.
is not going to join us. She's out of town. But you let me know that things are progressing. However, there's been quite a little snag on the bridge artwork. Apparently, the artist, that's making the tiles, his studio got flooded out in California with all the rain and everything they've been having. So he's trying to put it back together. You know more about this than I do. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he was hospitalized for COVID, and that's when the studio flooded. So he wasn't there to get anything out. And he feels certain that one of the panels has been destroyed. So we don't know the status of that right now. And of course, I asked the ugly question of, is it insured? It's like- And I have not heard yet what that answer is. So, because this just recently happened, so.
Becca
We don't-
said, thinks it's probably set it back till July.
Yeah. Because he's gonna have to start that whole section over again from the very beginning. And I don't even know what else. He might not even have a studio to work in. So it's,
It's heartbreaking.
it is
Yeah.
heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. And to come back to that after being
Yes.
in the hospital. So, and
goodness.
some. See.
Okay.
I have a
keep us-
question.
Yes, Barbara.
All of that aside, which I think is a sad commentary, I don't think that we should be liable for any additional cost in that regard.
And I haven't heard any mention of that at this point, but it's a very good point.
Is
Did
the,
did we officially or is there an official contract with this artist?
Again, we're not handling that. Our contract is with the arts.
Okay.
Crane, Crane.
Okay,
yeah, that's the way I recall we wanted to do it so that they, because they understand the process and how to work with artists.
Right. And Crane did not meet in February. And this just happened. And our next meeting with Crane is March 14th, something in there. So we probably won't have an official report, but from what I understand, we haven't even gotten an assessment, a real assessment of how much damage there was. So as soon as we find out that, and then we'll review the contract and try to work with the artist.
Well, if there's anything that we're familiar with and sympathetic to, it's the effects of flooding.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I agree, Barb, that we should not be carrying any liability for this, but
mhm.
whatever we can do to facilitate
Agreed.
would be terrific. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, just one other thing. So on the art on the streets project, the sculptures, Becca's still working on getting the actual placement for the one by the Holiday Inn Express. Apparently, where the easement was, there's several utilities now, and apparently that was kind of a coordination issue with the Holiday Inn, since they kind of knew where we wanted to put the sculpture, yet they had the utilities installed there. So anyway, they're gonna have to, it's not insurmountable. They're just gonna have to slide the sculpture. I think it's a little bit further to the east, but it's still okay. So I think Becca's working on that as well, but anyhow, little hiccup there too.
Okay. La Fun, what's happening with the La Fun?
You know, there's a couple of things still going on. The Paragon is still trying to figure out exactly what the site is gonna look like, what they want to propose for that site. And they're still looking at possibility of retail now, probably stronger than before, because then with the zoning code change, you know, they wanted to do 3/1, which is kind of a standard one, 5/1. The zoning code won't allow that with the height restriction. And then the density issue is gonna be a problem too. So they're still looking at it, but it's become a little bit more problematic. And now they're really trying to concentrate on trying to find retail, I think, for that site. And the grocery store is still in the mix, so they're still looking at that too, which I keep encouraging them to do.
Okay. Any comments or questions about that? All right, Jim, your report.
I just gave it.
And there it was.
Doing the art stuff and LaFon and, you know, we don't have a big budget this year, guys, so. We've been kind of dealing with that. We spent a good part of Saturday here, and Nancy was a trooper and stayed for the entire thing, I assume, right? I think it was, the council work session went to what, 5 o'clock? All the way to, yeah. So, we'll talk about that later too. But anyhow, there was some good news out of that meeting, and I'll let Nancy kind of go over that. But that's kind of the things I've been.
Okay.
Okay,
So
Is
let's
there,
talk about-
is
yes.
there any update about the gas station property?
No, Martin.
Um,
Oh, no, nothing on that yet. I think I said last month that there was a buyer and he backed out at the very, very last minute. From what I understand, his financing, the bank, I guess, was requiring more environmental testing on the building for asbestos and that type of thing, and he decided he didn't want to do that. So he backed out. I did have a call from somebody that was interested in the building, so I know there's some interest in it. But right now, no, there's no current buyer that I'm aware of.
Sorry. That's like what we're here for.
Does Farley want to expand?
Well, it's just, that's what URA is supposed to be helping with.
We had money.
Yes, exactly. Mitigating asbestos and those kinds of things. Sorry, I was just being. a little bit. Keep going.
You know, this is being recorded, but
I know. Zipping.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Barb, do you have any other questions for Jim about his report?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the city council work session, which I did not attend. So all my news is from the emails that have been going back and forth in the last couple of days. So Jim, Nancy, Ann, you
was
know
only
more than
there
I do.
for
Oh,
an
you were?
hour.
Okay.
You know, Ann and myself and Alan, Elwich were here for the morning, but when council took a break at lunchtime, they still hadn't started to discuss the urban renewal projects at that point. It was painful, as Nancy would say. So I'll let Nancy take over and tell you what council actually ended up doing.
Yeah, it was very interesting deliberation, and I can't say consistency was necessarily overwhelming criteria for things. The good news is, I think it's good news. Council agreed to take three projects, I think it was three projects back under the city. That being the trees, and gave $5,000 for that. The Christmas lights, $35,000 for that. And the 24 right-hand lane, and gave $250,000 for that. So, and I have to tell you, Jim, I did not advocate as based on what Farley just said. I did not advocate for the additional money, the extra 300K under the holiday, under the redevelopment. Thank you. I did advocate very strongly for the payback for the Holiday Inn, and John Shada said he would give the money for the Holiday Inn if the URA gave the equivalent amount of money back to the city from your budget. That was based on the lawyers saying that it had to be the sales tax from the Holiday Inn that goes back to the Holiday Inn, and that currently is in the city's budget, not your budget.
Right.
So that was the rationale for that. Anyway, regardless, it didn't get any traction, nor did any of the redevelopment. But I did not advocate for the redevelopment other than the Holiday Inn. I'll tell you, because my sense, my very strong sense is that URA is going to have to come back with individual projects individually and ask council for the money, which I have no idea what the chances are of success. I keep being optimistic, and I don't know why. So
Because that's how you are.
yeah.
And we appreciate that.
Very good.
So anyway, it actually was better than I
Yes.
was
agree.
expecting. And I think that in particular, that the right-hand turn lane onto Manitou Avenue was actually a very, very good news. So questions?
Just one. So did they actually allocate, what did they go to, the 30%, or what did they do with their?
30% plus, I can't even remember now, a little bit left over from it was like $3.3 million, I think, that we could, and I should have brought it with me. use up, and we used up most of it on options. So 3.3 mil was a 30%, was what we had at 30%. So we're keeping a 30% reserve. Very, very conservative. But we intend to have another session in the summer around budget amendment time to see if that reserve goes up, if we can allocate out some more in the summertime.
So there's still a chance is what you're saying?
There's still a chance, but there's still a hell of a lot of projects,
Oh,
city
good.
projects on the list.
Yeah, I forget what the total was. It was huge.
I tell you, city, yeah, well, we used up almost the entire 3.3 mil.
Yeah, 5.7 is what they projected, is what they had need for.
Yeah, but only 3.3 that we could actually allocate this go round. The city, there's 150K dedicated to Memorial Hall rehab. The library got $1 million. The Hiawatha Gardens got $450,000. Soda Springs Park got $500,000. So there was some big and then the Public Works made out like bandits. They got a lot of new vehicles and equipment. So so it was an interesting day. Yeah, Farley.
But I can't remember, did you fund the 10,000?
Yes, great. That's on my list actually during my section to talk
DDA.
about the 20,000 for the DDA or the economic
20.
development. Yeah, funded, which was great actually,
Yes,
because
yeah.
that was touch and go. So that was $20,000 along with the 20,000, I believe 10 or $20,000 from the chamber. And I think you guys put in as well.
We have it in our budget too.
Yeah. So,
We don't-
so that's going to go. And that was, there's not by any stretch of the imagination, 100% support for council on that, but there was enough support to get it through. So.
One thing to point out though, is that our budget included 110,000, still does, for the art on the streets project, because, those are already underway. So looking at the carryover that we had, I looked at, we should cover that.
And one more question was about, did they fund Plan Manitou being
If memory serves me, that was already
Updated?
in the budget,
was it?
wasn't
Okay.
it? I think,
I couldn't remember.
I'm pretty sure that was, I think it already budgeted for that. I think.
Okay.
there was another 100K. And I'm trying to remember what that was for. It was early on, but anyway. Yeah.
There was there money for cleaning?
That's it. The 100, thank you, Ann. Yes, exactly. There was 100K dedicated to cleaning up and making the downtown area just look better, beautification, repairs, just all kinds of stuff.
And that's gonna go through Public Works, not the bid or something.
Correct. Correct. I don't know if the bid will end up, if they'll partner with the bid or not, but it's for city. Yeah. And that was just a huge priority on Denise's evaluation this year, was a goal for next year, for 2024 or 2023, to make downtown look a lot better.
Nice.
Good.
Just one thing on the 250,000 for the Highway 24. I talked to Denise yesterday, and I think we'll probably end up handling that similarly to what we did with the Becker's Lane stuff, where excuse me, the city is actually going to be the lead on it because it's in their budget, not ours. But we will be involved with that, I'm pretty sure. And I'll work with Dole and, there's going to have to be some public input
Yes.
into that whole thing. We're going to have a couple, maybe public things. So.
Yeah, that was my concern. I was asking in an email to Jim a couple days ago about coordinating the Highway 24 project, because I think there's such a big impact on the businesses in the URA that if there is a public process and it doesn't include reaching out to the businesses, and sometimes it doesn't, right? It's just a general special mention made, then we're in trouble. Judy, I don't know if you can hear us or whoever's managing, hosting the session, your mic is on, so we can hear you.
John. John's.
Oh, John's on, but John's, John, yes, your microphone is on. I think so.
Turn that off.
Oh, thank you. But you're welcome to talk to us if you'd like to as well. We wouldn't mind. We just wanted you to know we can hear you. So it would be good if there's coordination because I think we have the mechanism to reach out to the businesses.
And then Denise also told me, and I don't know, Nancy, if you know more than I do on this one, that the funding may have to go to 2 readings of council to
Yeah,
appropriate it all.
Yeah, if we have to actually, if we can do it now, or if we have to actually amend the budget as well. Or if we can, I know in the past, we've kind of rearranged some things and allowed it, but there's a good chance we'll have to actually amend the budget before it can be expended.
So
But
probably
that'll
within-
be quick. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, within the month,
March.
we'll have that done, yeah.
we have it by March.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
project could get going.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reach out to Dole and see if we can get, the scope back together again and see because we never did finish the original contract. We put Matrix on hold after they did the traffic analysis and got CDOT approval for actually taking out that lane, the turn lane, which is good. And I'm glad that, we're gonna keep going because we don't lose that momentum. And, we still have the same personnel at CDOT that approved it, so that's probably a good thing. So I think that at least the 250 should get us through the design and engineering part of it, and maybe public outreach might add to that a little bit, because I'd asked Matrix to give me a ballpark figure on what it would take to get this thing ready to be ready for CDs and ready to bid. And they gave me around 200. So I think that at least we'll get that much done this year, probably not out to bid or construction contract. I was hoping we could, because it would have been nice to have construction during the winter or during the fall, not during tourist season.
Thank you. Yes, and the holiday lighting, did you mention the holiday lighting? It did get funded.
It got funded in the city. They're all going over to the city other than, oh yeah, all of them are going to the city.
Okay.
That got funded.
Okay, any questions or comments about that? Jim, you'll keep us up to date about what you hear. Communication plan. I wanted to spend just a few minutes on this today and maybe tee it up for next month. I have been sort of vaguely aware, but not paying close attention to the fact that we do have a communication contract with Carol Campbell, and she is on retainer doing some like low-level public relations work for us. I think mostly managing our social media, website, Instagram, Facebook presence, that kind of stuff. With the closing of the journal or the bulletin, I'm sorry, and the opening of 6035 Media, that clearly we have a little bit different media presence in town now. And we are in a different situation, a different circumstance than we've been in the past in terms of what we need to be saying about the work of the URA in the community. So I think it's time that we take a look at that contract and think about what it is we really want together as a board out of any public information or public relations. I mean, just the fact that we might have to do a public process for the Highway 24 design makes me think that we may want a different relationship with property owners, business owners, and the community at large. I don't know what that means yet. And I was teeing up a conversation with Jim and with John Maynard, but John has been on the road. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention at the moment and have you thinking about what you believe we should be doing or need to be doing in the future. And, like budget wise, what kinds of things we should be doing and why, and maybe tee that up for a conversation next month. What do y'all think about that? It's going to be challenging. Yeah, Barb.
I know with the formation of the 6035 publication that the publisher has already resigned, Amy Gillentine. And I at least had heard that maybe John Weiss had taken a renewed interest. I don't know the verification of that, but I was just thinking it might be worth engaging in a conversation with Ralph Roten. He and someone else were named as interim publishers or leaders of the new publication, and maybe just have an understanding of, maybe from his perspective, how our local news will be covered. And it might give us some insight about how best to use various media outlets for our future needs.
That's a really good point, Barb. Are you in a position to do that? Are you still traveling through the month? Or is that
No.
something?
I'll be back in town next week. I'd be happy to reach out to Ralph. And, but maybe it would be nice to have some dialogue with him to kind of get a sense how our town's going to be covered and our region's going to be covered in particular going
Yeah.
forward. Would you
Yeah.
like me to do that, Debbie?
If you wouldn't mind, I think that would be useful information to have.
Okay,
It certainly is, it's a changing landscape, and the idea of leaving Manitou Springs News to the Gazette is not an idea that I'm very fond of. So whatever we can do to encourage Ralph to keep the spotlight on us, that would be great. Yeah.
And he has, I mean, they have this section they call Village.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of coverage.
There is.
Actually, and more quickly than there ever was in a published paper. And he has just recently on Facebook, he indicated that they were going to switch their approach where they were going to mail to zip codes on a rotating basis to actually distribute in Manitou paper copies much more aggressively. So I think he's very responsive to the criticism that he's hearing from folks that Manitou's getting left behind.
Good.
And I don't think we are, frankly. And I think he's getting pretty good coverage through Rhonda, who's
Yeah,
kind of the
still.
point person.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of opportunities.
So Rhonda's still doing.
She
that
is.
part of it.
Yeah.
She is, and she has been very assertive. She's been covering it well, because I'm subscribing to the Village and watching regularly. It's just different, right?
Mhm.
Because there's no paper version yet regularly. Yeah, Farley.
How does the URA, is the URA able to work with the city PIO to put out information?
His work is prioritized, so I would just, if you want anything done, just go through Denise and ask for Alex's support, and generally, I mean, he's great. And if Denise prioritizes his work for him to include the URA stuff, I'm sure that he'll really be a big help.
I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Because
point.
there's a lot of, I mean, it's Facebook, but that's fine, right?
Right.
I mean, at least it's one outlet.
Absolutely. At the moment, we tend to be republishing his stuff.
Right.
But I don't believe that it's going the other way around. Then again, what have we had to publish lately, right? And maybe that's the question we need to ask is, what would we talk about if we were going to be talking about things? In terms of our next steps, what would we need to publicize?
And actually, Carol she started a discussion on the LaFawn about what people would like to see there. that got lots of feedback.
It
And
did.
that was very.
It was quite good. It was quite good. So perhaps it's just new instruction to Carol about what it is we'd like to see and why. Or different coverage than what we have today that we just haven't been thinking
Put it on
about.
speaker. I don't know how.
Still got a speaker on. John, do you have something you want to say?
I can't hear.
John, do you have something you want to say?
He can't hear.
Yes, you do.
We hear you.
She's asking if you have something you want to say.
I can't.
Awkward.
Why can't you just talk into the phone?
Because I'm on mute and they can hear everything that's going on, including the door slamming and everything else otherwise.
So John, your microphone's on again.
The microphone's on again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got some technology issues here, but I'm listening in today. So at least for part of the conversation, as long as I got cell service here. I think that we may have other opportunities to discuss what's going on with the URA other than the current methodology that we've been using. And at some point in time, it seems to me that we'll need to promote some of our projects, perhaps inform the public about LaFawn if there's ever a development proposal there, and perhaps other redevelopment opportunities. But my position is that we've got a short period of time left. We need to engage the property owners to the degree that they're willing to do so and see what we can do for them to make their businesses viable or more viable. So that's my general comment.
Okay. So you would be heading more in that direction in terms of what kind of outreach we would be doing in the foreseeable future?
Yes. I mean, we have a limited amount of time here and we need to figure out what we can do in the next 8 years.
Okay.
And we need to promote that.
Okay. So if we put this back on the agenda for next month, we can have, everyone can give this some thought and we can, Barb can
Mhm.
reach out to Ralph and we can come back to the table with some ideas about what might be possible. Okay, hearing no objections, let's do that.
Just a quick update. I did update our database for all the property owners this year. So I think I have the current list. And some things have changed over. And we had talked, Debbie and I had talked before about sending out some kind of a letter or notice to the property owners again. Just feeling them out and saying, hey, you have any plans, or, this is what the URA can do. And so I was gonna draft a letter for Debbie to sign and then send that out. And just see if we get any feedback on that. I have reached out to both the Maggie's, who owns the old car wash, and also to Rouse again, who owns the J Dynasty building, and nothing back from either one of them. So I may follow that up with a phone call and see if I can get anywhere. The Dillon was never sold. I thought they were gonna buy that. Maggie's was gonna buy that, but they didn't. I think Roger Guzman still owns that.
Okay,
So Jim and Debbie,
yes.
all that's gone on as it relates to the Holiday Inn, doesn't that kind of set kind of a negative precedent for outreach to other prospects?
I would expect so.
So I don't know how you characterize that in a letter to prospects about, here's what we can do for you.
Well, I think Nancy hit it on the head too earlier when she said that if we have projects and potential funding for tax increment that we probably could go back to city council and show them what that is and see if they would be willing to agree to that.
Yes. Carly.
Back to John's suggestion about helping the businesses, just in terms of how to think about this over the next month when it comes back around. Can we get a little bit of clarification about what that means actually? Like, are we talking about helping them with, like, I'm thinking about Mo's, for example. You know, are we talking about helping them get a good sign, maybe some outdoor dining? Or are we talking about more infrastructure type projects around their buildings, or
That's a good question.
grants? Like we had that, what was it called? That, yeah, the facade improvement
Yeah,
grant, which was never really touched or tapped into. We're talking about paint, beautification. It just needs a little more thought around that.
Yeah.
For next month.
And without a steady revenue stream, what's actually possible to do? Because it seems to me that the grants we've offered in the past have been too small for most businesses to take advantage of to make a big enough difference to have it be worth the interaction. But we don't have a steady enough revenue stream into the future to be able to tell anyone with certainty. If you came to us with a project that was $250,000, we could think about that seriously and undertake it with the funds that we have, assuming that it meets the requirements of the law.
Does anybody recall what Jim, maybe with the mechanic?
Sheldon?
How much was that? Because we did a fence, we did paint,
I think it was around-
signage.
It was 10 grand.
Was it
believe
10
it was 10
grand?
grand,
Mhm.
yeah.
You did quite a
And we
bit.
did a mural on the outside of the building. And then we actually paid for the fencing that went up along the sides there rather than
Oh,
include it in
okay.
the grant. So I don't think we quite gave him the full amount because we ended up, doing the work for him. And it benefited the little park too. So
Right.
I think that's how that all, that was the extent of it.
Okay. So maybe that's what we're talking about is
Could be.
projects like that. Okay.
It seems that it's too late in our history to be thinking about another TIF project, right? Because we don't have the run room to get a return. So what we're really talking about is what money do we have in the bank and how could we be spending it wisely on the properties in the URA or on additional public improvements? To me, that's sort of the question that we're left with. And we've had this running list of public improvement projects that we've been able to fund without a similar list from property owners. I think, John, this is what you were getting to, without a similar list from property owners about what's possible, what would help improve the economic viability of your property, assuming you continue to remain the property owner. We don't know where we're headed, right? We don't know how we could spend resources. And I think we'd just be making a stab in the dark to come up with a new grant program or a new, sort of long-term or short-term loan idea that would meet their needs because their needs are so varied. So without a conversation with them about what's possible, it seems difficult to even kind of know where to head. But Barb's right. The Holiday Inn conversation has certainly colored the conversation. And without an understanding about what our revenue picture looks like into the future, except the most conservative picture that we have, that's hard to know too. So we have to kind of step carefully, I think. And I don't know what the feasibility is. If we came to the council with a request, for example, for something for Mo's specifically, this is what the improvement would look like. This is the economic benefit to the community. Would they nibble at that? We don't know. It's worth a try.
Can you hear me? This is John.
Yes.
I mean, here's a general comment. In the in the past, the URA has basically spent the majority of its funds making improvements within the district, public improvements within the district. And a limited amount of funds have gone to individual property owners to enhance economic viability for them and basically for the city as a whole as a result. And I see a change maybe in our focus, and that would be to engage the property owners depending on their willingness to do so, and ask them, what would you like to see us do? And perhaps go in a different direction to focus our efforts over the next few years toward projects that they identify as a direct benefit to them.
Questions or comments for John about that? Okay. With that background, we can talk more this next month, give it some thought, come with ideas about how we would approach this whole topic, and we'll see where we head. Nancy, your report, although you may have given us most of the big news.
Most of it, yeah. Let's see. The council has done an agreement with, updated our agreement or re-signed our agreement with CSU for wastewater. So that's huge and expensive. And if you don't know, we don't do our own wastewater. We put it through. I mean, we have the infrastructure to get it out of Manitou, but, and Anne, thank you, was very helpful in coming up with that agreement. At your April meeting, I'm sorry, no, you have an April meeting with council. So
Yes.
Thinking about how what you want to get out of that and carefully craft that. I spent the day yesterday with Denise up in Denver at a legislative update meeting, and this is kind of funny, so I just had to share it with you. The Fort Collins was talking about they had done a land use development code, spent years on it as we had done recently. And within months, it had been repealed. Wow. Yeah, wow is right. So they talked about public engagement, but the funny that they needed different public engagement. The funny part of it is that one of the guy from Lakewood called it public enragement, which I just thought was funny. So I just had to share that with you because I could relate. You guys, Marcy will be up for reappointment on Tuesday night. Mark will not be. The mayor would not put Mark on the agenda until Mark contacted him. I don't know if Mark has contacted him yet or not. I know Mark is incredibly busy. Legislature is in huge
So,
session.
yeah, so I had reached out to Mark and he was calling him like that moment last
Okay.
week, but it may not have happened. They may not have connected in time for the,
Yeah,
to
well,
get on the agenda.
it should have just been on the consent calendar. But anyway, I think Marcy is just on the consent calendar. But so anyway, no more
We'll
on that.
follow up again.
Let's see, what else do I have? April meeting. Oh, the Manny Awards are the 23rd of March, 5:30 in this room. So put that on your calendars. It's a fun, if you've not been to one, they're fun and it's nice to recognize leaders within the community. And on this Tuesday night, not only will Marcy be on the agenda, the chamber sign will be on the agenda. Fingers crossed on that one. And the Creek Walk contract to build between the chamber and Fields Park will be on the agenda. That got kicked off. That got rejected as a contract a couple months ago to look at permeable surfaces. And it's going to be an interesting discussion. I have very strong opinions, but we'll see how it goes. And that's, I think, all I have. So any questions for me? Sorry, Barb, I have my back to you. Oh,
Barb, you're muted.
That's okay. I heard you loud and clear.
okay, thanks. Okay, thanks.
Any questions for Nancy? Other business, items of other business?
Well, Nancy brought up a good point. We do have a work session with council in April. And I don't know where we want to go with that. Obviously, that was supposed to be to talk about URA projects for this year in our budget. They funded some of those through the city budget, not the URA budget. I don't know if we want to have a discussion about how we go ahead with that or the next meeting, or are we going to talk about redevelopment project? I mean, I don't know how we want to approach that.
I would say let's put that on the agenda for next time. I think the conversation about communication and our own plan might inform what we'd like to say to the council. We could decide that it's too early to have a joint session with them unless they have something they want to discuss with us
Just to clarify, it won't be a joint session. It'll be the URA.
at their
Briefing.
work session.
Yeah,
At a
and that
council work
was
session.
kind of, I believe that was as much you guys didn't want a
Yes.
joint session.
Yes, that's
Because that lends some complexities to the situation.
That's right. So if we don't have anything that we want to be talking to them about, then there's no reason to continue with that work session. Unless there are topics that they'd like to put on the agenda. Initially, we were asking for this as a way to have the conversation about the projects that were on the unfunded list of projects for the city. So that seems to have been taken care of. It may be that we don't have an agenda.
Yeah, it may be too early.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put it on March board meeting. We can make a decision then, and then I can get back to Denise.
Is that appropriate to do, Nancy, or would it be better if we called it now so that something else could go on your April work session?
No, I wouldn't call it now because agendas tend to be very flexible up until, the week before. You prefer not, but that would happen. And my recommendation is just, what do you want from council? And you talked previously about, what should the processes be? That you guys go through to get things approved and to get additional funding for the URA.
Right.
So, but I would say, what do you want out of that meeting? Because you guys will be presenting. It
Right.
won't be council presenting to you, and whatever you want to ask, that's the time to ask for it. Yeah, so what are your goals to accomplish with this meeting? Because you're not going to get goals out of council, I don't think. They're just gonna, what do you guys want? So,
Okay. All right. So if we feel like we can be focused enough in that conversation, we'll go forward.
yeah, to know exactly what you want and then craft your briefing to achieve that. And I and I shouldn't be participating like this, but I found John's comment very useful that if you've only got 8 years left, what is your strategy for the next 8 years? And potentially it will change from what you've done in the past and the reasons why that might be.
Right. So it might be that it's more of an informative session than it is we want A, B, and C, because I think our A, B, and C list has been routinely rejected consistently over the last several months. So it may be more of we're coming to talk to you about our thinking about the time that we have left.
Yes, and I would also plead with you all that elections are coming up. There are 4 seats up for election in November. And if you know people that you think would be good on council, please encourage them to run. If you want me to talk with them, I am more than willing to talk with anybody who might be interested in running for council. The Citizens Academy that the staff has set up, which is starting shortly, is a waiting list, which is very encouraging. There's a bunch of people who have indicated that they are interested in running for council. Some would be good, some we'll have to see. And so I just think that this is going to be a very important election. So that's my plea. If you know of anybody, I think the more people we have running, we just haven't had people running in the past few years. So most of us were elected with, no competition. So I don't think that's good for democracy. So I'm encouraged that there's interest. Thanks.
Thank you. Comments or questions for Nancy?
One
Thank-
other thought is that, I can't remember how far back it was, but when council first discussed our budget, they did leave the door open and kind of encouraged maybe developing some kind of memorandum of understanding between the URA and council going forward. Maybe we need to kind of talk about that with them in April.
It's a possibility. Let's see what unfolds with your conversations with Denise and see if that's the direction we should head in.
Or wait a year. And then we're gonna.
I want to make sure that Barb, both you and John, John has dropped off now. So Barb, do you have any other comments or questions?
No, I just wanted to thank Nancy for being a great liaison for us in communications back and forth.
It's
Thank you,
been
Barb.
crucial.
Appreciate that.
It's been crucial. My only other business is to see if we do have an update about the DDA, progress on the DDA, or is it too early to be talking about that? So I'm going to let Farley give us a,
I do think it's too early. We're just I guess the next step would be to hire the consultant.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's definitely in the chamber's work plan for this year to help do that, but this consultant would come through the city.
Yeah, and you might, just a thought, you might want to have someone from your board on the selection committee.
for the consultant.
Yeah.
That's a
or
great
would,
idea.
Yeah.
Suggest that.
Can you make that
Mhm.
happen? Can you put that in the hopper, or should we do something formally? Because we do clearly have an interest in formation of a DDA.
Is there any timing coming from Denise on that yet? Okay. Yeah, so maybe I think a formal letter requesting that somebody from the URA be on the selection committee, the hiring committee.
I can draft one.
Would that be all right with everyone? Are there any objections to having us move forward with that?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, as a sustainability idea, I think that's the direction that we should be heading, is throwing our hat in that ring. So, okay, Jim, if you draft something.
Okay.
That'd be great. Okay. Anything else? So nice to see most of you in person again. That was terrific. And we have some follow-up items right away. We're finding Mark Snyder to make sure that we get him in front of the mayor as quickly as possible if that hasn't happened. And we're drafting this letter to Denise about the being on the DDA consultant selection committee. You're all thinking about communication, kind of work plan ideas, how we move forward as a board in the short term and in the longer term with our remaining time. Yes, Nancy.
I just have a question, and I know Ann has explained this to me before, but you guys, the mayor, the only requirement to have someone appointed to the URA board is that the mayor concurs with it, correct? Is that the deal? And he just informs council that he did that, something like that.
I think state statute said it's appointed by the mayor with the concurrence of council.
It's weird. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
It's by state statute.
But that's the statute, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so we'll do what we need to button up that process for Mark.
Could you just send me that language? Does someone have that language they could send to
Yeah,
me?
I'll find it.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, anything else? Motion to adjourn, please.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion by Farley, second by Ann. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you all. Barb, safe travels home.
Thank you.